There are ancient places around the world that most people have never heard of. Not famous pyramids, or the ruins that appear in every history documentary, but forgotten cities, mysterious underground chambers, sacred hilltop tombs, and remarkable archaeological sites that reveal just how much of our past still remains hidden. These are not legends. They are real places. From an underwater monument off the coast of Japan, whose origins are still debated, to a city carved beneath the volcanic rock of Turkey. Bronze Age burial pits filled with beautifully crafted ritual vessels in China. Ancient passage tombs in Ireland built centuries before the Great Pyramid. Ceremonial kivas hidden among the deserts of New Mexico, and a lonely island off the coast of Malta whose towering cliffs have watched over the Mediterranean for thousands of years. Tonight, we'll travel across the world, exploring these forgotten discoveries through archaeology, separating what the evidence tells us from the mysteries that still remain. Before we begin, let me know where you're watching from and what time it is where you are. And if you enjoy calm archaeological documentaries like this one, I'd love to have you subscribe for future explorations. Now, the Yonaguni Monument, Japan's underwater mystery. Nearly 30 meters beneath the waves off the coast of Japan, there is a place that has puzzled divers, geologists, and archaeologists for decades. At first glance, it looks impossible. Massive stone terraces rise from the seafloor like the steps of a forgotten pyramid. Perfectly straight walls stretch into the blue. Sharp corners meet at angles that seem almost too precise to have been carved by nature alone. To some, it is the lost remains of an ancient civilization. To others, it is simply one of the most remarkable natural rock formations on Earth. Even today, no one can say with complete certainty which explanation is correct. The story begins near the island of Yonaguni, Japan's westernmost inhabited island. Lying closer to Taiwan than mainland Japan, Yonaguni is known for powerful ocean currents, dramatic cliffs, and some of the country's finest diving waters. For centuries, local fishermen knew these seas well, but what lay hidden beneath them remained unseen. Everything changed in 1986. While searching for new places where divers might encounter schools of hammerhead sharks, local diving instructor Kihachiro Aratake made an unexpected discovery. Descending through the clear water, he noticed enormous stone formations unlike anything he had seen before. Wide, flat platforms, steep vertical faces, broad stair-like terraces. The structures seemed to continue across the seafloor as though they were part of a carefully planned complex. News of the discovery quickly spread throughout Japan. Soon, scientists, photographers, and explorers from around the world arrived to investigate. The largest formation measures roughly 150 meters long and rises nearly 25 meters from the seabed. Seen from above, it resembles the outline of a massive stepped monument. Divers have identified what appear to be broad staircases, flat plazas, narrow passageways, and even features that resemble roads or ceremonial platforms. In photographs, the monument often appears almost architectural. It is easy to understand why so many visitors immediately ask the same question. Could human hands really have built this? One of the monument's strongest supporters is marine geologist Professor Masaki Kimura. After studying the site for many years, Kimura proposed that at least part of the formation may have been shaped or modified by people. He has pointed to what he believes are unusually straight edges, symmetrical terraces, possible tool marks, and carved features that seem difficult to explain through natural erosion alone. According to his interpretation, the monument could date back more than 10,000 years to a time when sea levels were much lower and the area may have been dry land. If true, such an age would make Yonaguni older than Stonehenge, older than the Egyptian pyramids, and among the oldest monumental structures ever discovered. Not everyone agrees. Many geologists argue that the monument is entirely natural. They note that the sandstone beneath Yonaguni naturally fractures into straight lines because of its geological structure. Over thousands of years, earthquakes, ocean currents, and erosion can produce surprisingly regular shapes. The flat terraces, sharp angles, and vertical faces may simply be the result of natural processes acting on layered rock. To these researchers, Yonaguni is extraordinary, but not mysterious. Nature, they argue, is capable of creating formations that resemble architecture without any human involvement. The debate has continued for decades. Both sides have carefully examined the site. Divers have searched for unmistakable evidence of human construction: stone tools, pottery, carved inscriptions, human remains. So far, none have been discovered directly at the main monument. That absence has made many archaeologists cautious. Without artifacts firmly connecting people to the structure, most specialists remain unconvinced that Yonaguni can be described as an ancient city. Yet questions remain. During the last ice age, sea levels were more than 100 meters lower than they are today. Large areas now underwater were once exposed landscapes where humans could have lived. As the climate warmed, melting glaciers gradually raised the oceans, flooding coastlines around the world. Many prehistoric settlements disappeared beneath the sea. Researchers have found submerged villages and ancient shorelines in several parts of the world. So the idea of underwater archaeology is not unusual. What remains uncertain is whether Yonaguni belongs in that category. Beyond the main monument, divers have reported other unusual formations nearby. Some describe what appear to be stone pillars. Others point to formations resembling arches or isolated platforms. A few have even suggested shapes that resemble faces or carved animals. Most scientists remain skeptical of these interpretations, noting that the human brain naturally recognizes familiar patterns in irregular objects, a phenomenon known as pareidolia. Even so, these reports continue to fuel public fascination with the site. Today, the Yonaguni Monument remains one of Japan's most famous underwater destinations. Every year, divers descend into the deep blue waters hoping to see the massive stone terraces for themselves. Some leave convinced they have visited the ruins of a forgotten civilization. Others return believing they have witnessed one of nature's greatest geological masterpieces. Perhaps the monument's greatest mystery is not whether it was built by people, but why it continues to divide experts after nearly 40 years of study. Sometimes history leaves behind clear answers, and sometimes it leaves only stone beneath the sea, waiting for each new generation to ask the same question once again. Who, or what, created Yonaguni? The Longmen Grottoes, China's mountain of stone Buddhas. Along the banks of a quiet river in central China, a limestone cliff stretches for more than a kilometer. At first, it appears like any other mountainside, but as you move closer, faces begin to emerge from the rock, then hands, flowing robes, towering figures carved directly into the stone, thousands upon thousands of them, some no larger than the palm of your hand, others standing taller than a 4-story building. Together, they form one of the greatest collections of religious art ever created, the Longmen Grottoes, a place where generations of craftsmen transformed an ordinary cliff into a sacred mountain unlike any other in the world. The Longmen Grottoes are located near the ancient city of Luoyang, one of China's oldest capitals. The carvings line both sides of the Yi River, where steep limestone cliffs provided an ideal canvas for monumental sculpture. Today, more than 2,300 caves and niches have been identified. Inside them stand over 100,000 Buddhist statues, along with thousands of inscriptions and nearly 3,000 stone tablets. No visitor can take them all in at once. Every few steps reveal another hidden figure watching silently from the rock. The story began in 493 AD. At the time, China was ruled by the Northern Wei dynasty. Its emperor, Shaowen, decided to move the imperial capital to Luoyang. With the arrival of the court came scholars, artists, monks, and wealthy patrons eager to support Buddhism, which had spread into China from India centuries earlier. Soon after the capital moved, work began on carving the limestone cliffs beside the river. What started as a handful of caves gradually became one of the largest artistic projects in Chinese history. Creating the grottos demanded extraordinary patience. Unlike statues carved in workshops, these sculptures could not be moved or corrected. Stonecutters worked directly into the cliff face. Using iron chisels and simple hammers, they carefully removed layer after layer of limestone. One mistake could ruin months of work. Some caves required years to complete. Others continued growing across generations as new figures were added beside older ones. The largest and most famous cave is known today as Fengentian Temple. Completed during the Tang Dynasty in the 7th century, it contains a breathtaking group of monumental sculptures. At the center sits the immense Vairocana Buddha. The figure rises about 17 meters, or roughly 56 feet, above the visitors below. Its expression is calm, its posture perfectly balanced. Even after more than 13 centuries, the statue seems almost alive in the changing sunlight. Historians believe the construction of Fengentian Temple was supported by Empress Wu Zetian, the only woman in Chinese history to rule as emperor in her own right. According to historical records, She donated large sums toward the project, although the exact extent of her financial support remains debated. Some later traditions even suggest that the Buddha's serene face was inspired by the Empress herself. Whether that is true remains uncertain, but the story has become one of the site's most enduring legends. Not every statue at Longmen is colossal. In fact, most are surprisingly small. Many were commissioned by ordinary believers, government officials, military officers, merchants, families hoping to honor deceased relatives, or pilgrims seeking blessings. Some carvings measure only a few centimeters in height. Together, these countless small donations created a monument built not only by emperors, but by thousands of individuals across centuries. The grottos are also a remarkable historical archive. More than 2,800 inscriptions remain carved into the stone. These texts record the names of donors, religious dedications, imperial decrees, and details about the craftsmen who created the sculptures. For historians, these inscriptions provide a rare glimpse into everyday life in medieval China. They reveal not only great rulers, but ordinary people whose names might otherwise have disappeared forever. Time, however, has not always been kind to Longmen. Natural erosion slowly softened many of the carvings. Floods and earthquakes caused additional damage. During the 19th and early 20th centuries, numerous sculptures were broken apart or removed entirely by art dealers and collectors. Some heads and smaller statues found their way into museums and private collections across Europe, North America, and Asia. Many have never returned. The empty niches scattered across the cliffs quietly remind visitors of what has been lost. Despite these losses, the Longmen Grottos remain one of the finest surviving examples of Buddhist art anywhere in the world. In 2000, UNESCO recognized the site as a World Heritage Site, praising both its artistic achievement and its historical importance. Conservation teams continue working to protect the fragile limestone from weather, pollution, and the passage of time. Their task is never truly finished. Stone, after all, slowly changes with every passing century. Today, millions of visitors walk the riverside paths each year. Some come to admire the artistry. Others seek spiritual reflection. Many simply stand in silence beneath the towering Buddhas, trying to imagine the generations of craftsmen who spent their lives carving mountains into places of worship. The Longmen Grottos remind us that the greatest monuments are not always built by raising stone toward the sky. Sometimes, they are created by patiently carving away the mountain itself, until faith begins to emerge from the rock. Maray, Peru's ancient agricultural laboratory. High in the Andes Mountains of Peru, there is a place that looks almost impossible from above. Perfect circles carved into the mountainside, each one descending deeper into the earth, like a giant staircase leading to another world. From the air, they resemble enormous craters left behind by some forgotten force. But they are not natural. Every terrace was carefully built by human hands. For centuries, travelers have wondered why anyone would create such an unusual landscape. Was it a ceremonial site? An ancient amphitheater? Or did the Inca build something far more remarkable? A laboratory unlike any the ancient world had ever seen. The site is known as Moray. It lies about 38 kilometers, or 24 miles, northwest of the city of Cusco, the former capital of the Inca Empire. Surrounded by rolling hills and snow-capped peaks, Moray sits more than 3,500 meters, or 11,500 feet, above sea level. At first glance, it appears surprisingly simple. 3 large circular depressions, each filled with perfectly constructed stone terraces that descend toward the center. Yet the deeper visitors look, the more extraordinary the sight becomes. The largest of these circular terraces measures nearly 180 meters, or about 590 feet, across. Stone retaining walls separate each level. Broad stairways connect one terrace to the next. Every surface was carefully engineered. The stones fit together with remarkable precision. Beneath the terraces, an advanced drainage system carries away rainwater, preventing erosion even after hundreds of years. It is a reminder that the Inca were not only skilled builders, they were also exceptional engineers. Construction likely began during the height of the Inca Empire in the 15th century. Unlike famous royal sites such as Machu Picchu, Moray was probably never intended as a city or fortress. Instead, many archaeologists believe it served a far more practical purpose: agriculture. but not ordinary farming. Agricultural experimentation. One of Murray's most remarkable features is something visitors cannot immediately see: temperature. Scientists have measured a difference of as much as 15 degrees Celsius, or about 27 degrees Fahrenheit, between the uppermost and lowest terraces. As the circular walls descend, they create sheltered microclimates. The lowest levels remain warmer. The upper terraces experience cooler mountain conditions. Each ring forms a slightly different environment, almost like climbing or descending an entire mountain, without ever leaving the circle. Many researchers believe the Inca deliberately designed Murray to take advantage of these changing climates. Different crops thrive under different temperatures: corn, potatoes, quinoa, and countless other Andean plants each have unique growing conditions. By planting crops on separate terraces, farmers could observe how they responded to changes in temperature, sunlight, and moisture. In effect, Murray may have functioned as one of the world's earliest agricultural research stations. This idea fits well with what historians know about the Inca Empire. Feeding millions of people across the Andes was no simple task. The empire stretched across deserts, mountain valleys, and tropical forests. Successful farming required deep knowledge of local environments. The Inca developed extensive terrace farming, sophisticated irrigation systems, and carefully managed food storage. Murray may have been one place where that agricultural knowledge was refined before being applied across the empire. Not every researcher agrees completely. Some archaeologists suggest the terraces may also have held ceremonial importance. The circular design is unusual. The site's position within the sacred valley may have connected it to religious beliefs surrounding fertility, seasonal cycles, or offerings to the mountain spirits known as Apis. It is entirely possible that Murray served more than one purpose. For the Inca, practical farming and spiritual life were often closely connected rather than separate. The Spanish conquest in the 16th century brought profound changes to the Andes. Many traditional farming systems were abandoned. Knowledge passed down through generations gradually disappeared. Murray itself was eventually left unused. For centuries, the remarkable terraces remained largely forgotten outside nearby communities. Only in the 20th century did archaeologists begin studying the site in greater detail. Even today, researchers continue debating exactly how the terraces were used. Standing at the edge of Murray today, it is easy to understand why the site continues to fascinate visitors. The terraces descend in perfect circles, drawing the eye toward the center. The silence of the mountains surrounds them. What once echoed with the footsteps of Inca farmers now welcomes travelers from around the world. Every stone reflects careful planning. Every level suggests patient observation. Every circle raises another question. Murray reminds us that great civilizations are remembered not only for their temples and palaces, but also for their curiosity. Long before modern laboratories, the Inca may have been experimenting with climate, crops, and agriculture on a mountainside high above the clouds. Whether viewed as an engineering masterpiece, a sacred landscape, or one of history's earliest agricultural laboratories, Murray continues to demonstrate that some of humanity's greatest innovations were born not in cities, but in quiet places where people learned by observing the natural world itself. Kaymakli, the underground city beneath Turkey. Beneath the quiet villages of central Turkey, hidden below fields, vineyards, and stone houses, lies an entire world that most people never see. A city, not built beneath the ground by accident, but deliberately carved into solid volcanic rock. Here, families once slept, cooked, prayed, stored food, raised livestock, and survived for months without ever seeing the sun. Even today, walking through its narrow tunnels feels less like entering a cave, and more like stepping into a forgotten civilization buried beneath another. This is Kaymakli, one of the largest underground cities ever discovered. Kaymakli lies in the region of Cappadocia, in central Turkey. Today, Cappadocia is famous for its unusual rock formations and hot air balloons drifting across the morning sky. But beneath this extraordinary landscape lies something even more remarkable. Soft volcanic tuff, formed by ancient eruptions millions of years ago, made the region easy to carve while remaining stable enough to create large underground spaces. Over centuries, people transformed this natural stone into an astonishing network of tunnels, chambers, and entire underground neighborhoods. Although the underground city reached its greatest size during the Byzantine period, its earliest origins may stretch back much further. Some archaeologists believe the first chambers were excavated by the Hittites, who ruled much of Anatolia during the 2nd millennium BC. Others suggest that major expansion occurred during the early Christian centuries as local communities sought protection from periods of invasion and political instability. Exactly when Kaymakli first began remains uncertain. What is clear is that generation after generation continued enlarging it. Today, visitors can explore only a portion of the city. Even so, Kaymakli extends through at least 8 underground levels, although only 4 are currently open to the public. Researchers estimate that thousands of people may once have lived here at the same time. Some estimates suggest as many as 3,000 to 5,000 residents, though the exact number remains debated. The city was not simply a place to hide. It was designed to function as a complete community. The deeper one travels, the more sophisticated the city becomes. There were living quarters, communal kitchens, storage rooms filled with grain, wine presses, oil presses, stables for animals, workshops, ventilation shafts, and even places of worship. Fresh air reached the deepest levels through carefully engineered vertical shafts, while wells supplied water to the inhabitants below. Every part of daily life had been carefully considered. Perhaps the city's most ingenious feature was its security. The entrances could be sealed using enormous circular stone doors. Some weighed several hundred kilograms, rolled into place from inside. They blocked narrow passageways so effectively that intruders would have struggled to force their way through. Small openings at the center allowed defenders to observe the tunnels or use weapons while remaining protected behind the massive stone. These doors turned the underground city into a formidable refuge. Why would people go to such extraordinary lengths? Throughout Cappadocia's history, the region experienced repeated invasions, conflicts, and political upheaval. Early Christian communities, in particular, sometimes faced periods of persecution or military raids. Underground cities like Kaymakli offered temporary safety during dangerous times. Rather than fighting invading armies directly, residents could disappear beneath the earth. Food stores allowed them to survive for extended periods until the threat had passed. Kaymakli was not alone. The region contains dozens of underground settlements. Some were small villages. Others became enormous complexes connected by hidden passages. One of the most famous is Darinkyu, another vast underground city located only a short distance away. Some researchers have suggested that ancient tunnels may once have linked parts of these underground communities. While a few connecting passages have been identified locally, the idea of an extensive network joining the major cities remains unproven and continues to be debated. After centuries of use, many underground settlements gradually fell into disuse. Families returned permanently to the surface. The hidden chambers remained sealed beneath the villages above. In the 20th century, modern residents occasionally rediscovered forgotten rooms while digging wells, renovating homes, or expanding basements. What had once been part of everyday life slowly became an archaeological treasure. Today, visitors walk carefully through Kaymakli's narrow corridors, often needing to bend beneath low ceilings carved centuries ago. The air remains cool. The stone walls still bear the marks of ancient tools. It is difficult not to wonder what life must have been like. Children playing quietly beneath the earth, families preparing meals by lamplight, neighbors waiting together for news that it was finally safe to return to the world above. Kaymakli reminds us that history is not always written in towering monuments or magnificent palaces. Sometimes, human ingenuity is found in places hidden from view, deep beneath the ground, where survival depended not on conquest, but on patience, cooperation, and the remarkable ability to transform solid rock into a city that could protect an entire community for generations. Barnhouse, the forgotten neighbor of Skara Brae. When people speak of the ancient villages of Scotland, one name almost always comes first: Skara Brae. Its stone houses, hidden beneath sand for thousands of years, have become famous around the world. But only a few kilometers away, there is another settlement that receives far less attention. A place that was once just as alive. A place where fires burned inside stone homes, families gathered for meals, children played among narrow pathways, and one remarkable building stood unlike anything else in the village. This is Barnhouse, a Neolithic settlement on Scotland's Orkney Islands that quietly rewrites what we know about Europe's earliest farming communities. Barnhouse lies beside the Loch of Harry, in the heart of mainland Orkney. Today, the landscape feels peaceful. Rolling green fields stretch toward the horizon. Sheep graze where ancient people once cultivated crops. Yet more than 5,000 years ago, This quiet place was one of the most important communities in northern Britain. The village was occupied between approximately 3,229 BC, making it older than Stonehenge in its familiar form, and older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Unlike Skara Brae, Barnhouse was never buried beneath coastal sand dunes. Instead, its remains survived beneath farmland until archaeologists began excavating the site during the 1980s. As the soil was carefully removed, an entire prehistoric village slowly emerged. House after house appeared beneath the earth. Stone walls, central hearths, carefully paved floors, doorways connecting one room to another. It soon became clear that Barnhouse had once been a thriving community. Archaeologists have identified around 15 stone houses arranged around open spaces. Each home was built using locally available sandstone. The walls were thick enough to withstand Orkney's harsh Atlantic winds. Inside, the houses shared many familiar features. A central fireplace provided warmth and light. Stone furniture, including cupboards, storage boxes, and beds, was built directly into the walls. Life here was simple, but far from primitive. These homes were carefully planned and skillfully constructed. The people of Barnhouse were among Britain's earliest farmers. They cultivated barley and wheat, raised cattle and sheep, and made pottery decorated with distinctive patterns now known as grooved ware. Stone tools crafted from local materials supported daily life. Fishing and gathering also played important roles. The surrounding landscape provided food, building materials, and access to nearby ceremonial sites. For these early communities, the land itself was both home and sacred space. One structure, however, stands apart from all the others. Known simply as Structure 8, it is considerably larger than the ordinary houses surrounding it. Its walls were thicker, its interior more carefully constructed. The building occupied a central position within the settlement. Unlike the neighboring homes, it appears to have served a special purpose. Exactly what that purpose was remains one of Barnhouse's greatest mysteries. Some archaeologists believe Structure 8 may have been the residence of an important leader or respected elder. Others suggest it functioned as a communal meeting place, where decisions affecting the village were made. Still others think it may have held ceremonial significance, perhaps connected with rituals or seasonal gatherings. No written records survive to answer these questions. Only the stones remain, and they continue to inspire debate. Barnhouse was not isolated. Only a short walk away stands one of Britain's most remarkable prehistoric monuments, the Stones of Stennis. Nearby lies the great ceremonial complex known as the Ring of Brodgar. A little farther away is the immense ritual site now called the Ness of Brodgar. Together, these monuments form one of Europe's richest prehistoric landscapes. Many researchers believe the people of Barnhouse helped build, maintain, or participate in ceremonies at these nearby sites. Their daily lives and spiritual beliefs were likely closely connected. Around 2950 BC, the village appears to have been abandoned. Why the residents left remains uncertain. There is little evidence of violence or sudden destruction. Perhaps environmental changes altered farming conditions. Perhaps communities gradually moved elsewhere. Or perhaps changing religious traditions shifted the region's population toward new ceremonial centers. Like so many prehistoric mysteries, Barnhouse leaves no written explanation, only silence. Today, visitors can walk among the low stone foundations where families once lived 5 millennia ago. The walls no longer reach roof height. The fires have long since gone cold. Yet the layout of the village remains remarkably clear. Standing there, it is surprisingly easy to imagine smoke rising into the northern sky, neighbors speaking across open courtyards, and the rhythm of everyday life continuing season after season. Barnhouse reminds us that history often remembers the most famous places, while overlooking the communities that stood beside them. Without villages like Barnhouse, great ceremonial monuments might never have existed. They were built by ordinary people, farmers, craftsmen, families, whose names have vanished but whose lives remain quietly preserved in stone. Sometimes, the forgotten neighbor has just as much to tell us as the famous site next door. Tulum, the cliffside city that watched the Caribbean. On the eastern coast of Mexico, where turquoise waves crash against white limestone cliffs, the remains of an ancient city still overlook the Caribbean Sea. Unlike the towering temples hidden deep within the jungle, or the vast ceremonial centers of the Maya world, This city was built at the very edge of the continent. Its walls faced both the sea and the forests beyond. For centuries, ships approaching the Yucatan Peninsula would have seen its stone buildings rising above the cliffs. To travelers arriving by water, it must have looked like a fortress guarding the coast. This is Tulum, one of the last great cities built by the Maya civilization. The name Tulum means wall in the Yucatec Maya language. It is an appropriate name. Unlike many Maya cities, Tulum was surrounded by thick defensive walls on 3 sides. The 4th side required no protection. There, the land ended abruptly in cliffs overlooking the Caribbean Sea. These natural defenses made the settlement one of the most secure coastal cities in the Maya world. Even today, standing atop the cliffs, it is easy to understand why this location was chosen. It offered both protection and an uninterrupted view across the horizon. Although people had lived in the region much earlier, most of the structures visitors see today were built between AD 1200 and 1450 during the late post-classic period. By this time, many of the great inland Maya cities, such as Tikal and Palenque, had already declined. Yet Tulum flourished. It became an important trading center linking communities across the Caribbean and the Yucatan Peninsula. Goods arrived by canoe from distant ports. Salt, cotton, honey, obsidian, turquoise, jade, and cacao all passed through its marketplaces. The city stood at the crossroads of both land and sea. Perhaps the most recognizable building in Tulum is El Castillo, perched dramatically on the cliff's edge. Its stone walls dominate the coastline below. For many years, researchers believed the structure served primarily as a ceremonial temple. That remains true, but it likely had another purpose as well. Its elevated position allowed it to function as a landmark for sailors navigating the dangerous coral reefs along the coast. Ancient Maya navigators are thought to have aligned the building with openings in the reef, guiding their canoes safely toward the harbor. Religion and practical navigation, working together in a single monument. Nearby stands the Temple of the Frescoes. Though smaller than El Castillo, it contains some of the finest surviving Maya wall paintings. Inside, fragments of colorful murals still cling to the ancient plaster. These paintings depict deities, symbolic figures, and sacred imagery connected to Maya beliefs. Although time has faded much of their original brilliance, the remaining artwork provides valuable insight into the religious life of Tulum's inhabitants. Few painted Maya interiors have survived so well. Life within the city extended far beyond temples. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of homes, administrative buildings, workshops, and public spaces. The population was likely only a few thousand people at its peak. Merchants, priests, craftsmen, farmers, and fishermen all contributed to the city's success. The surrounding coastline supplied fish and shellfish, while inland communities produced crops that supported daily life. Trade connected them all. Tulum also occupied an important place in Maya religion. The city was closely associated with the worship of the descending god, a unique deity often shown upside down, as though descending from the heavens. Images of this figure appear throughout the site. Exactly what the descending god represented remains uncertain. Some scholars connect the figure with bees, fertility, the setting sun, or even the planet Venus. Others believe the image symbolized rebirth or the movement between the heavens and the earth. Like many aspects of Maya belief, its full meaning has been lost with time. In 1518, Spanish explorers sailing along the coast became some of the first Europeans to witness Tulum. The expedition led by Juan de Grijalva described a city whose stone buildings impressed the newcomers. One chronicler even remarked that its towers reminded them of cities in Spain. At the time, Tulum was still inhabited, but only a few decades later, European diseases, political upheaval, and the collapse of long-established trade networks contributed to the city's gradual abandonment. The stone buildings remained. The people did not. Unlike many ancient cities, Tulum was never completely swallowed by the jungle. Its location on the open coast kept much of the architecture visible. Even so, centuries of tropical storms, salt-laden winds, and erosion slowly wore away the limestone. Conservation continues today as archaeologists work to protect the fragile structures from both nature and the millions of visitors who arrive each year. The sea that once brought prosperity now presents one of the site's greatest challenges. Today, visitors stand atop the same cliffs where Maya merchants once watched the horizon. The Caribbean stretches endlessly into the distance. Below, The waves continue to strike the rocks just as they did centuries ago. The city is quieter now. Its markets have disappeared. Its temples no longer echo with ceremonies. Yet its location remains as breathtaking as ever. Tulum reminds us that great civilizations were shaped not only by kings and monuments, but by trade, exploration, and the movement of people across oceans. Perched between the jungle and the sea, its walls watch generations of travelers come and go. And although the voices of its builders have long since faded, the city still keeps watch over the Caribbean, just as it has for more than 700 years. Sipan, the royal tombs that changed the history of ancient Peru. For centuries, the deserts of northern Peru kept one of archaeology's greatest secrets. Beneath a series of low mud brick pyramids, hidden under layers of sand and earth, a royal tomb remained untouched. Not looted, not disturbed, not forgotten by chance, but simply waiting. When it was finally opened, archaeologists found something they had almost given up hoping to discover. A ruler, still resting where he had been placed nearly 17 centuries earlier, surrounded by gold, silver, turquoise, ceremonial weapons, and loyal companions buried beside him. The discovery would transform our understanding of one of South America's greatest forgotten civilizations. This is the story of the royal tombs of Sipan. The site of Sipan lies in Peru's Lambayeque Valley, near the modern city of Chiclayo. Long before the rise of the Inca Empire, this region was home to the Moche civilization. Between approximately AD 100 and 800, the Moche built monumental temples, created remarkable metalwork, engineered sophisticated irrigation systems, and ruled much of Peru's northern coast. Yet unlike the Inca, they left no written language. Their history survived only through their art, architecture, and the objects buried with their dead. For many years, archaeologists knew the Moche had been powerful. Their pottery depicted richly dressed rulers wearing elaborate ornaments. Warriors marched across painted vessels. Priests performed mysterious ceremonies. But there was always one lingering question. Were these merely symbolic images? Or accurate representations of real people? The answer remained buried beneath the desert. Everything changed in 1987. Local looters searching for valuables broke into one of the ancient pyramids at Huacarajada, the archaeological site that contains the royal tombs of Sipan. Gold objects quickly appeared on the black market. Fortunately, authorities intervened before the entire tomb could be destroyed. Archaeologist Walter Alva and his team arrived to begin an emergency excavation. What they uncovered exceeded every expectation. Deep inside the pyramid, the archaeologists discovered a burial chamber unlike any previously found in Peru. At its center lay the remains of an elite ruler now known as the Lord of Sipan. Unlike many ancient royal tombs, this one had never been looted by grave robbers. Everything remained almost exactly where ancient mourners had placed it around AD 300. It was one of the most complete royal burials ever discovered in the Americas. The Lord of Sipan wore extraordinary ornaments. Large gold ear spools framed his skull. Necklaces made from gold, silver, and precious shell rested across his chest. Intricately crafted pectorals reflected the light of archaeologists' lamps. He carried ceremonial knives, copper weapons, and finely worked jewelry unlike anything previously associated with the Moche. Each object demonstrated astonishing craftsmanship. Many pieces had been hammered from incredibly thin sheets of metal using techniques that still impress modern experts. Yet perhaps even more remarkable, the ruler had not been buried alone. Around him lay the remains of several other individuals. Archaeologists identified warriors, servants, women, and a child. A dog had also been placed inside the tomb. One guard appeared to have had his feet deliberately removed before burial, perhaps symbolically ensuring that he would remain forever at his master's side. The exact meaning of these burials is still debated, but they reveal the extraordinary importance of the man at the center of the chamber. The discovery solved one of archaeology's greatest mysteries. The elaborate clothing and ornaments depicted in Moche artwork were not imaginary. The Lord of Sipan wore the very same ceremonial regalia shown on ancient pottery. For the first time, researchers could connect artistic representations directly to real historical rulers. Images once thought symbolic suddenly became portraits of actual people. The Moche civilization became far more tangible, far more human. Excavations continued for many years. Additional elite tombs were uncovered nearby, including the burial of an older nobleman known as the Old Lord of Sipan and several other high-ranking individuals. Together, these discoveries revealed a complex society with hereditary rulers, elaborate religious traditions, and highly organized political authority. Each new chamber added another piece to a civilization that had remained largely hidden beneath the desert for over 1,000 years. Today, many of the treasures recovered from Sipan are preserved in the Royal Tombs of Sipan Museum, where visitors can see the gold ornaments, jewelry, ceremonial objects, and reconstructed burial chambers almost exactly as archaeologists found them. The museum itself was designed to resemble an ancient Moshe pyramid, allowing visitors to descend through the exhibits much as archaeologists descended into the original tomb. It offers one of the most remarkable archaeological experiences anywhere in South America. Standing at Huacarajada today, the mud brick pyramids appear surprisingly modest against the vast desert landscape. There are no towering stone monuments, no massive columns, only weathered earth shaped by human hands. Yet beneath those quiet mounds, one of the greatest archaeological discoveries of the 20th century forever changed our understanding of ancient Peru. The royal tombs of Sipan remind us that history is often rewritten not by conquering new lands, but by uncovering old ones. For more than 1,600 years, a king rested undisturbed beneath the desert. His treasures remained hidden, his story forgotten, until one remarkable discovery allowed an ancient civilization to speak once again, not through written words, but through gold, stone, and the silent dignity of a ruler who had patiently waited for history to find him. Filfla, Malta's forbidden island of stone and sea. Just a few kilometers south of the island of Malta, a lonely mass of limestone rises from the Mediterranean Sea. There are no villages, no beaches, no harbors, no permanent inhabitants, only steep cliffs, powerful waves, and the endless sound of seabirds circling overhead. From a distance, Filfla appears almost insignificant, a small rocky island barely visible against the horizon. Yet for thousands of years, sailors have noticed it. Ancient people may have looked toward it with curiosity, perhaps even reverence. Today, no one is allowed to land there without special permission. The island remains almost exactly as nature has left it, a silent monument shaped by time itself. Filfla lies approximately 5 kilometers, or about 3 miles, south of Malta's main island. It covers less than 6 hectares, making it surprisingly small. Yet its cliffs rise dramatically from the sea, reaching heights of around 60 meters or nearly 200 feet. Seen from the water, the island resembles a fortress carved entirely from pale limestone. Its vertical walls leave almost no easy place to land. Even calm seas can quickly become dangerous along its rocky shoreline. The island's story began millions of years ago. Like much of the Maltese archipelago, Filfla was formed from layers of marine limestone deposited when this region lay beneath a warm prehistoric sea. Over immense stretches of time, tectonic forces slowly lifted these sediments above the surface. Wind, rain, and crashing waves then sculpted the island into the rugged shape seen today. Every cliff tells a geological story written over millions of years. Although Filfla appears isolated, it has not always been ignored by humans. Archaeological evidence discovered on nearby Malta suggests that prehistoric communities were well aware of the island. At the remarkable temple complex of Havar Kim, built more than 5,000 years ago, the southern entrance aligns toward the direction of Filfla. Some researchers have suggested that the island may have served as a distant landmark or held symbolic importance within the sacred landscape. Whether this alignment was intentional remains debated. No written records survive to explain its significance. Unlike Malta itself, Filfla has never supported a permanent settlement. There is no reliable source of fresh water. The cliffs make construction extremely difficult. The surrounding seas can be unpredictable. For ancient sailors, the island likely served as a navigational marker rather than a destination. Its unmistakable silhouette helped mariners recognize the southern edge of the Maltese Islands long before modern charts or lighthouses existed. For centuries, Filfla also became known for another reason: its remarkable bird life. The island provides an important nesting ground for several species of Mediterranean seabirds, including the European storm petrel and the Yelkouan shearwater. Because humans rarely visited, the birds found a place largely free from disturbance. Every spring, thousands return to the cliffs to raise their young among narrow crevices in the limestone. The island belongs more to wildlife than to people. Human activity, however, did leave its mark. During the 19th and 20th centuries, Filfla was occasionally used by the British military as a target during naval and aerial training exercises. Bombardment damaged parts of the island and altered sections of its landscape. By the late 20th century, these activities came to an end as awareness grew about the island's ecological importance. Protection gradually replaced destruction. Today, Filfla is designated as a protected nature reserve. Landing on the island is generally prohibited except for scientific research and conservation work carried out under special authorization. These restrictions help preserve one of the Mediterranean's most fragile ecosystems. Without constant human presence, the cliffs continue to shelter nesting birds much as they have for centuries. Nature has quietly reclaimed the island. The waters surrounding Filfla are equally fascinating. Divers exploring nearby reefs encounter dramatic underwater cliffs, caves, and rich marine life. The clear Mediterranean waters reveal geological formations sculpted over thousands of years. Yet the same underwater landscape that attracts experienced divers has also challenged countless sailors throughout history. Strong currents and submerged rocks demand respect even today. Standing on Malta's southern coastline, Filfla seems deceptively close. The island hovers on the horizon like a solitary stone ship anchored forever in the sea. Its pale cliffs glow beneath the afternoon sun. At sunset, they gradually disappear into shadow. Nothing moves except the birds circling overhead and the waves endlessly striking the rock below. It is one of the quietest places in the Mediterranean. Filfla reminds us that not every remarkable place is filled with temples, cities, or buried treasures. Some landscapes become extraordinary simply because they remain untouched. While civilizations rose and fell across the Mediterranean, this small island continued standing alone against the sea. Its cliffs watched Phoenician traders, Roman ships, medieval sailors, and modern vessels pass by, silent, unchanging. A lonely fragment of stone that has witnessed thousands of years of human history without ever truly becoming part of it. Qingtai, China's forgotten Bronze Age burial pits. Across the plains of northern China, modern highways, factories, and growing cities stretch across a landscape shaped by thousands of years of history. Beneath that same ground, another world still waits, one filled with carefully dug burial pits, bronze vessels, jade ornaments, ancient weapons, and the silent traces of people who lived more than 3,000 years ago. Most pass over these places without ever knowing they exist. Yet every new excavation reveals another chapter from one of the world's oldest civilizations. Near the modern city of Qingtai, archaeologists have uncovered remarkable Bronze Age burial grounds that offer a rare glimpse into the rise of early Chinese kingdoms. Qingtai is located in Hebei province, roughly midway between Beijing and the ancient heartlands of northern China. Today, it is a busy industrial city. But during the Bronze Age, this region occupied an important position between the Yellow River civilization and the northern plains. Trade routes crossed the area, communities flourished, and powerful ruling families established settlements that gradually became part of expanding Bronze Age states. Much of their history now survives beneath layers of farmland and modern development. Many of the burial pits discovered around Qingtai date to the Shang dynasty, which ruled parts of China from approximately 1600 to 1046 BC. The Shang were among the first Chinese dynasties to leave both written records and sophisticated bronze technology. Their rulers governed through powerful royal courts. Religious ceremonies honored ancestors. Skilled craftsmen produced bronze objects whose quality still astonishes archaeologists today. The burial pits found in northern China help reveal how this society extended beyond its royal capitals. Unlike the enormous pyramids of Egypt or the monumental stone tombs of Europe, many Shang burials appear surprisingly modest from the surface. Often, there is little more than a shallow depression in the earth. Only after careful excavation do archaeologists discover deep rectangular pits carved into the soil below. Within them, the dead were laid to rest alongside carefully selected objects meant to accompany them into the afterlife. Every burial tells a different story. Some graves contain beautifully cast bronze ritual vessels. Others include bronze axes, daggers, arrowheads, or ornate drinking cups used during ceremonial feasts. Jade ornaments, bone carvings, shell decorations, and finely crafted pottery frequently accompany the deceased. These objects were far more than possessions. They reflected social status, political authority, and religious belief. To the Shang, bronze itself carried profound ceremonial significance. The craftsmanship of these bronzes remains extraordinary, Rather than using simple hammering techniques, Shang artisans mastered an advanced process known as piece mold casting. Clay molds were carefully carved, assembled around a core, and filled with molten bronze. The method allowed artisans to create intricate designs featuring spirals, animal faces, dragons, and geometric patterns with remarkable precision. Even after 3,000 years, many of these decorations remain sharply preserved. Some of the larger burial pits also contain evidence of ritual sacrifice. Archaeologists have uncovered the remains of animals, particularly dogs, placed within or beside certain graves. In a smaller number of elite burials across Shang China, human sacrifices have also been documented. The exact meaning of these practices remains the subject of ongoing research. Some scholars interpret them as offerings to ancestors. Others see them as expressions of royal authority or deeply rooted religious traditions. The people themselves left few written explanations. One of the greatest challenges facing archaeologists is that many burial sites were disturbed long before scientific excavations began. Ancient tomb robbers searched for valuable bronzes and jade thousands of years ago. Modern looting has caused additional damage in some areas. Even so, careful excavation continues to reveal untouched graves, whose contents remain exactly where they were placed more than 3 millennia ago. Each undisturbed burial becomes an invaluable source of historical knowledge. The discoveries around Qingtai also help historians understand that Bronze Age China was not centered entirely around famous capitals such as Anyang. Regional communities played essential roles in maintaining trade, agriculture, craft production, and political influence. Bronze technology spread across wide areas. Local elites adopted many of the same ceremonial traditions while developing regional identities of their own. Together, these communities formed the foundation of an increasingly interconnected civilization. Today, the burial pits themselves appear remarkably quiet. After excavation, many are carefully documented and protected. Some artifacts are preserved in museums where visitors can admire their astonishing craftsmanship. Others remain in storage for future study as new scientific techniques continue revealing information impossible to detect only a generation ago. Each excavation adds another piece to a history still being assembled. Standing above these ancient burial grounds, there is little to suggest what lies beneath. Fields sway gently in the wind. Roads carry the traffic of modern China. Life continues as it has for centuries. Yet below the surface, bronze vessels still rest where ancient hands placed them. The silence has endured for over 3,000 years. The Bronze Age burial pits of Qingtai remind us that history is often hidden beneath ordinary landscapes. A quiet field can conceal the resting place of forgotten nobles. A simple mound of earth can preserve masterpieces of ancient craftsmanship. And beneath the modern world, the people who helped shape one of humanity's oldest civilizations continue to wait, patiently, for the next careful excavation to bring their stories back into the light. Loughcrew, Ireland's hilltop tombs older than the pyramids. High above the green countryside of Eastern Ireland, a series of ancient stone cairns crowns a chain of quiet hills. Mist often rolls across the landscape in the early morning. The wind moves gently through the grass. Sheep wander between weathered rocks that have stood in place for thousands of years. At first glance, these monuments seem almost ordinary. Simple piles of stone overlooking the valleys below. But hidden inside, behind narrow passages and massive stone slabs, are chambers built by people who lived long before metal tools, long before written language, and long before Egypt raised its first pyramids. These are the Loughcrew cairns, among the oldest surviving monuments in Ireland. The Loughcrew complex is located in County Meath, approximately 80 kilometers northwest of Dublin. It occupies the highest hills in the surrounding region, rising more than 270 meters above sea level. From these summits, the view stretches across much of central Ireland. It is difficult to imagine a more commanding location. Whoever chose these hills clearly understood the importance of both visibility and landscape. Even today, the monuments seem to watch over the countryside. Archaeologists believe the cairns were constructed around 3200 BC. That makes them slightly older than Stonehenge in its famous stone phase, and older than the Great Pyramid of Giza. Their builders belonged to Ireland's Neolithic farming communities. These early farmers had already begun clearing forests, growing crops, and raising domesticated animals. Yet despite their simple technology, they undertook one of the most ambitious construction projects of prehistoric Europe. The name Laufkreuz refers not to a single monument, but to a group of more than 30 passage tombs scattered across several hilltops. Many have been damaged over the centuries. Some survive only as low stone mounds. Others remain remarkably intact. The largest and best preserved is known simply as Cairn T. Its narrow stone passage leads into a cruciform chamber covered by an enormous mound of stone and earth. Inside, the atmosphere changes immediately. The outside world disappears. Only cool air, stone walls, and silence remain. The tomb builders displayed extraordinary engineering skill. Massive slabs weighing several tons were transported to the hilltops without wheeled vehicles or metal tools. These stones were carefully positioned to create stable passages and chambers capable of surviving for more than 5,000 years. The roofs still stand. The walls remain remarkably straight. Every stone appears to have been placed with deliberate precision. Perhaps the greatest treasures of Laufkreuz are not its architecture, but its carvings. Many of the stones are decorated with intricate patterns created using nothing more than stone tools. Spirals, concentric circles, zigzags, chevrons, diamond shapes, and winding curves cover the surfaces. Some stones contain dozens of overlapping designs. Others feature only a few carefully placed symbols. Their meanings remain one of prehistoric Europe's greatest mysteries. No written explanation has ever been found. Some researchers believe the carvings represented religious ideas or myths passed from generation to generation. Others suggest they marked family groups or important individuals buried within the chambers. A few scholars propose that certain patterns may even symbolize journeys, water, or cycles of life and death. No single interpretation has gained universal acceptance. The symbols continue to resist simple explanation. Perhaps that uncertainty is part of their enduring fascination. One remarkable feature sets Cairn T apart from many other passage tombs. Each year, around the spring and autumn equinoxes, the rising sun shines directly through the entrance passage. For a brief period after sunrise, golden light travels deep into the chamber, illuminating the decorated stones inside. This alignment is unlikely to be accidental. It suggests that the builders carefully observed the movement of the sun and incorporated those observations into the monument's design. The passage became not only a tomb, but also a calendar written in stone. Excavations have revealed that the cairns served as burial places for many generations. Fragments of cremated human remains, stone tools, bone objects, and decorated pottery have all been discovered within the chambers. The burials appear to have been collective rather than individual. These monuments were not built for a single ruler. Instead, they probably served entire communities over long periods of time. The ancestors remained together beneath the hills they had chosen. Centuries after the Neolithic builders disappeared, the cairns continued attracting attention. Irish folklore often associated the hills with ancient kings, supernatural beings, and sacred gatherings. Some traditions described them as places where powerful spirits dwelled. Others linked the hilltops with legendary figures from Ireland's early history. Although these stories emerged thousands of years after the monuments were built, they reveal that the sites never completely vanished from human memory. Each generation gave the ancient stones new meaning. Today, visitors who climb the hills are rewarded with sweeping views across Ireland's rolling countryside. The chambers remain cool and quiet. The carved stones are protected but still visible. Standing inside, it is impossible not to wonder about the people who carried these enormous stones uphill more than 5,000 years ago. They left no names, no written language, no surviving legends of their own. Only these carefully aligned monuments, waiting patiently beneath the Irish sky. The Laufkreuz cairns remind us that some of humanity's greatest achievements were created not by mighty empires, but by small farming communities working together across generations. Long before famous kingdoms rose elsewhere in the world, the people of Ireland were already shaping hills into monuments that would outlast countless civilizations. And every spring, as the first rays of the rising sun once again enter the ancient chamber, the builders' understanding of the heavens quietly comes back to life, exactly as they intended more than 5,000 years ago. Aztec ruins, the Great Kivas of New Mexico. In the high desert of northwestern New Mexico, where sandstone cliffs meet wide river valleys, the remains of an ancient community still stand beneath the open sky. From a distance, the site appears peaceful. Rows of weathered stone walls, low rectangular rooms, and narrow passageways spread across the landscape. There are no towering pyramids, no massive statues, Yet hidden among these quiet ruins are remarkable circular chambers built deep into the earth, places where ceremonies were held, communities gathered, and traditions were passed from one generation to the next. These are the great kivas of Aztec Ruins National Monument, a place whose name tells only part of its story. Despite its modern name, the site has no connection to the Aztec civilization of central Mexico, when early American settlers encountered the impressive stone ruins during the 19th century. They mistakenly believed they had been built by the Aztecs. The name remained. Today, archaeologists know the settlement was constructed by the ancestral Pueblo people, descendants of the communities once centered in Chaco Canyon. The misleading name survives, but the true history has gradually come back into focus. The settlement was built along the Animas River between approximately AD 1100 and 1300 at the time. It formed part of a larger cultural network stretching across the Four Corners region of the American Southwest. The builders carefully planned the community. Hundreds of interconnected rooms surrounded open plazas. Multi-story buildings rose above the desert floor. Stone masonry was executed with remarkable precision, using shaped sandstone blocks and thick earthen mortar. Even after nearly 1,000 years, many walls still stand several meters high. The largest structure within the settlement is known as the West Ruin. It originally contained around 400 rooms, making it one of the largest Pueblo communities ever constructed outside Chaco Canyon. The arrangement of rooms suggests spaces for storage, living quarters, workshops, and ceremonial activities. The settlement was far more than a collection of houses. It was a thriving center where agriculture, trade, craftsmanship, and religion came together. At the heart of the site lies its most remarkable feature, the Great Kiva. Unlike ordinary buildings, a kiva is circular and built partially below ground. Visitors descend by ladder through an opening in the roof, much as the ancient inhabitants once did. Inside, massive wooden roof beams once supported a carefully engineered ceiling. Stone benches lined the walls. A central fire pit provided warmth and light. Ventilation shafts directed fresh air into the chamber while smoke escaped through the roof opening. The design reflects generations of architectural knowledge refined over centuries. Kivas served as places of ceremony, community gatherings, education, and spiritual practice. Many Pueblo communities continue to regard kivas as sacred spaces today. Because of this living cultural connection, archaeologists approach the structures with great respect. Not every aspect of their ceremonial use has been publicly documented. Some traditions remain private within descendant Pueblo communities. The stones preserve their history, but not every story is meant to be told. One small feature inside every traditional kiva carries deep symbolic meaning. Near the center of the floor is a tiny opening known as the sipapu, according to Pueblo tradition. It represents the place through which the ancestors emerged into the present world. Though physically modest, the sipapu connects the ceremonial chamber with profound beliefs about origin, creation, and humanity's relationship with the earth. It reminds us that architecture can express ideas far beyond its physical form. The people who built Aztec ruins were accomplished farmers. Using the waters of the nearby Animas River, they cultivated maize, beans, squash, and cotton. Trade connected them with distant communities, macaw feathers from tropical regions, turquoise, shell ornaments from the Pacific coast, and finely crafted pottery moved across vast distances through well-established exchange networks. The Southwest was never isolated. It formed part of an interconnected world. Around the late 13th century, the settlement gradually declined. The exact reasons remain uncertain. Prolonged drought, changing political relationships, resource pressures, and population movement may all have contributed. Many residents likely migrated south toward the Rio Grande Valley and other Pueblo communities that continue to thrive today. The buildings were left behind, but the people themselves did not disappear. Their descendants still preserve many traditions rooted in this ancient landscape. In the early 20th century, archaeological excavations revealed much of the site's original layout. One of the great kivas was carefully reconstructed during the 1930s using archaeological evidence and traditional building techniques. It remains one of the few places where visitors can step inside a full-scale reconstructed Great Kiva and experience something remarkably close to its original appearance. The reconstruction provides a rare opportunity to appreciate both the engineering skill and the ceremonial atmosphere of these remarkable spaces. Today, the desert wind still moves quietly through the stone walls. Cottonwood trees sway beside the river. Sunlight falls across ancient masonry much as it did centuries ago. Visitors walk through silent rooms where families once prepared meals, craftsmen shaped tools, and children played beneath the same clear New Mexico sky. The Great Kiva waits patiently beneath its massive wooden roof, still inviting quiet reflection. The Aztec ruins remind us that remarkable civilizations are not defined by famous names alone. For generations, people believed these structures belonged to the Aztecs. The truth proved even more fascinating. They were the work of the ancestral Pueblo people, master builders who transformed stone, wood, and earth into enduring communities guided by both practical knowledge and deep spiritual belief. Long after the voices of their builders faded, their great kivas continue to preserve something far more lasting, a sense of connection between people, the land, and the generations that came before.